Hi again. We're ready to start basting this quilt together. And basting is a type of sewing, I guess you could call it, in any sewing craft where you use a large stitch just to hold things together and keep them from shifting or um, coming apart. Like when I used to sew garments a lot, there were times when I would need to baste something together just to hold it, so when I really was stitching, nothing shifted and got out of the way. Out of, not out of the way, out of whack. So what we're doing first is I'm going to run a line of basting across the top edge, about this far down on the batting. That's called a registration line. And when I bring the top in to put it on here, I will lay the top edge of the quilt top along that basting line, and we know it will be nice and straight and lined up with everything else. I put some pins in here just to keep the batting from shifting, and so we scoot down to the left edge, and I'm going to start right about there. Now, and I'm going to scooch in just a tad. So, what we need to do on this is my Pro Stitcher. I am not using it to do any kind of pattern right now, but what I do want to use on it is it's called a channel lock. And I'm going to set where it says horizontal here. I'm going to push that button. Maybe. There we go. When it's green, that means it's locked. And now I cannot move the machine any way but horizontally across the quilt. And that'll help me keep my line nice and straight. Because when I don't have them on, my line gets really wavy. So, the first thing I do is, this is how many stitches per inch I have. So I'm going to set it at its lowest setting. And on the bigger fancy machines, it actually has a basting stitch that does a 1 inch. You can do a 1 inch sized stitch on your basting, but here we're 4 stitches per inch, so that's about a quarter of an inch. So you can see now. Oh, yes, I can do that. Let me try that again. What I was going to try and show you was, okay, come on, was that you can't move the machine, but if you yank it hard enough, you really can. So, and that's never, you don't want to do that. So I'm going to lock it again and hold on to this thread. I'm going to lower the needle and bring it back up, and that's going to pull my bobbin thread, which is underneath the machine. It's down in here. Pulls it up so I can hang on to it like that. I've got my stitch length at 4. I'm going to, and this means when I start the machine, it will not start sewing until I start moving. So press the go button, and here we go. And all I have to do is just gently pull it all the way across the machine. And it speeds up or slows down depending on how fast I move it. So here we go. All the way across and stop. And then I unlock it. Oh, I keep double tapping that. Okay, I unlock it, I can pull it forward, and this, then I pull my bobbin thread up again, and I clip my threads, and I put them in my handy dandy thread catcher, which is half of a Pringles can. So there you go. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Okay, so we've got our registration line laid down, and I'm going to go get the top and bring it in, and we'll be right back. Okay, here she is on top of the machine now. This is like so exciting. But what we have to do first, before we get into the fun stuff, is we have to baste this quilt down, this quilt top down to the backing and the batting. Keeps it nice and straight, keeps it stable, and so it doesn't bunch up or get crooked. And what I've done is laid this along that line of stitching that was in the batting. We've laid it right up along that basting line up there. And I'm going to run a line of basting just at the top edge of the quilt. I have this foot I have on here has some circles that I kind of try to use as a guide. I get a little wonky, but the basting stitches are easy to pull out. When I'm finishing up everything, I just kind of go through and clean those up if any of them are showing after I bind it. So no big deal. So here we go. I'm going to baste across the top first. Pull up the bobbin thread. I do not typically use my channel lock when I'm basting these lines because, again, I can take them out if they show, but this gives me a little more control and I can move the quilt and flatten it out if I need to, and I'm not worried about whether I'm going to pull that off the track. So here we go again. And I can't talk and drive at the same time, so you see I'm getting a little bit too far in, so I'm going to kind of push back. Now I'm too close to the edge. Yeah, see, I went way off track there, but again, it'll all come out even in the end. Okay, stop there. Now, if you will notice, I did get a couple of puckers right here. There was another one right there. That will work itself out. Or if I wanted to, I could just pull that stitch, which I might do. I'll just use my scissors there. If I can see it. I'll just clip that stitch and I can kind of work that out like that. And I'll do it. Where was the other one? I kind of smoothed it out. There. Okay. That's not cheating. All right, so we trim the thread. Put it in the Pringle can. And then I come back over to this side to baste down this side and then down the other side. So, same process. Can't find there we go. Okay. And we just do a real quick. And you have to stop and pull these threads again. And the reason I stopped there is because the front edge of the machine, which you can't see, is bumping again. Or no, sorry, it's not the front edge. It's the back of the throat here is bumping against the back bar. So I can't go any further than, let's see what I do, than that. And so I do that. And we go to the other side and do the same thing. Stop. And as I quilt the quilt, I don't know if I said this already, as I quilt the quilt, oops, I will be taking out, not the side basting, but the line of basting. I will now run a line of basting across this way, a horizontal line. And so what I will do going forward, take out my pins before I do anything. I'm gonna run we can take a pause here. I'm going to run a horizontal line of basting, and then I'll come back and show you how I roll the quilt forward. Okay, I've run my horizontal line of basting. Now I'm ready to roll the quilt forward so I can continue to baste down each side and across the middle, I guess you could call it the middle, horizontally. I have to unclamp, because when you don't want those, and I forget to do this all the time, you don't want those clamps rolling up with the quilt. But to do that, I have to unlatch it here. And I will use, I have this crank. Now, the red snappers can make this a little tricky. They don't like to go under that bar. So sometimes I have to come and push it. And roll it on up. There, it popped through. So as I'm rolling it, I'm gonna keep making sure that the batting stays smooth, because it's hanging down here, and it can get lumps in it and creases. So as you advance your quilt, you want to make sure it's always nice and smooth. And so now I'm going to back the machine up as far as it'll go, and I'll continue to roll it back until that line of basting reaches where my needle is, right about there. And I latch it back down like that. And it's ready for me to start on the back, on the other side, and finish basting it all the way down to the bottom, which when I get to the bottom, I will pin that down, close to the edge, and I will run a line of basting across the bottom edge, just like I did on the top. So that's loading the quilt and basting it down. Then the next thing after that will be to do a little machine maintenance to prep for quilting. And I will select thread. We'll talk about selecting thread and selecting a pattern that we want to stitch out here. So we'll see you in the next one.